to press record. Yeah. Okay. So with the introduction of NBFC-AA schemas in August of 2023 and the implementation date being in May 2024, our product team gets a lot of queries around implementation process that needs to get followed, clarifications, information, on technical details, so on and so forth. And these queries are coming from all quarters, whether it is FIUs, whether it is technology companies, whether it is FIPs, so on and so forth. And we thought that what better way to have a detailed conversation and knowledge sharing, exercise with all of y'all than arranging a webinar. So without taking any further time, I would like to call our product lead, Kunal Ahirwar. He is managing all, product and technology related information in Sahamati. He's also a subject matter expert. So Kunal, can you please start your video? Yeah. So the format of the webinar today is that Kunal will take us through a brief presentation on the ecosystem readiness, along with some tools, self-service tools that are available from Sahamati. And after that, we have kept the presentation to, a smaller section, and we would like to actually answer queries that you all have, questions that you all have for the large part of the next 2 hours. I would request you all to use Q&A section, not chat section, but Q&A section to post your queries. Kunal will be answering those queries on the Q&A section, and as and when there is a need to get somebody on screen, we would do that as well. Hope that is okay. Kunal, I will now shut my video. Please reach out if you need anything.
Sure. Thank you, Ruchi. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We'll get started with the presentation part today. So, for the first part of the presentation, we'll be covering about the readiness of the 2.0 implementation of the ReBIT AA specs. We'll look at how the ecosystem is pacing out so far. What are the changes that Sahamati has made to ensure backward compatibility and interoperability during this transition phase? There's a release of the fetch API that everybody is using in the central registry right now. So we'll be giving you a little more details about this, and then we'll go through the go live process for the FIUs and FIPs before we jump into the first part of the Q&A. In the second part, we'll look at some of the self-service goals that Sahamati has and how we are going to be enabling self-service on the central registry going forward. We have an onboard API which we are going to be releasing today, and we'll be giving you a small demo of that. And then there are some small announcements about the release of meta utility APIs and SaaS APIs, which we'll be talking about towards the end. So jumping into the readiness of 2.0 implementations. So as you all know, on August 9th, ReBIT released the new NBFC-AA specs, and the current specs have been deprecated on Jan 7th. Between Jan 7th and May 12th, entities that are live on 1.1.2 are supposed to continue providing service on 1.1.2 up until May 12th, 2024, which is the cutover date. Between Jan 7th and May 12th, the entities will go live. And
sorry, Kunal, can you come a little closer to the speaker or something? Your voice is echoing a little bit.
One second, let me just switch off the fan.
Yes.
Sorry, everyone. Better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So between Jan 7th and May 12th, as entities start to go live on the 2.0 specs, they are also expected to support the existing 1.1.2 specs up until the cutover date of May 12th. So as ReBIT has already notified, the first step is for the FIPs to go live, and then the AAs go live, and then the in the end, the FIUs are expected to go live on 2.0. Now, to support this, there are a few technical changes that have happened in the central registry. First, of course, in terms of the structure of the entities in the central registry. So far, we are all accustomed to seeing the central registry base URL parameter in the CR get API that you guys are using as a single URL. But in order to support both, we want entities to, we have recommended entities as a community to start migrating to this format where they share both the V1 and V2 URLs. What this will do is allow entities that are already existing on 1.1.2 to still continue communicating on 1.1.2, while entities that are ready for communication on 2.0 can use the V2 base URL and communicate on 2.0. Other parameters such as IP, sports, etc. already support multiple entries, and that is not going to be a problem. Entities are expected to use the same public certificates across both version 1 and version 2, since both URLs are tied to the same entity ID this year. Now, as you know, all the requests that are going through in the AA ecosystem are expected to be signed. All API requests are expected to be signed, and to verify those signatures, you need the public certificates of the entities. We are requesting all entities to continue to use the same public certificate on both version 1 and version 2 in order to ensure smooth operations and interoperability. Also, we entities still continue to use the CR Get API. There is a current version of the Get API or Fetch API, as we call it internally, that allows entities to fetch details of other entities from the central registry. We have two versions of this API available with us now. One which returns just the V1 base URL for entities in the CR. This is the one that all entities are currently using. But as entities migrate to 2.0, they are expected to also implement the Get API 2.0, which will return the base URLs for both V1 and V2 entities in the CR. So we'll jump quickly into the Fetch API. I'll give you a brief about what's happening here and what are the changes that have happened. So as I just mentioned, that the Fetch API or the Get API, as it's commonly known, is already available. But on January 25th, we released a second version of this API, 2.0 version, which returns both the V1 and V2 base URLs. Now, what this allows us to do is it allows entities in 2.0 to communicate with both V1 and V2 systems. But entities in V1 don't need to change anything in their implementation. They can still continue to support the existing implementation, the existing API, nothing breaks. As improvement in terms of the security, we are also going to be releasing a post version of this API on March 31st, which will also align it with the ReBIT specs, where since most of the ReBIT API, all the ReBIT APIs now in 2.0 are on the post method, we also want to align the CR Fetch API to this, and we will be releasing a new version of the Fetch API with a post method by March 31st. We will also be sending out an advisory once the API is ready with the details about the API. And of course, current Get API 1.0, which only returns the V1 base URLs, will be decommissioned on May 12th after entities have gone live on 2.0. For more details, you can always refer to the Sahamati GitHub. In fact, I'll take you through the Sahamati GitHub and explain what all we have here. So all the changes that have happened here are listed down. All the changes in terms of the API structure, request response structure, the Postman collection for the 2.0 API, sample JSONs that you can use to test it out, and the endpoints that you might need to use. So please do refer to the link in the presentation. It's also available on the GitHub under ecosystem readiness for ReBIT 2.x implementation. And again, coming back to how the FIUs and FIPs are going to go live, the expectation is that entities that are ready to start testing in UAT update their base URLs in the UAT CR as per this format. Once that is done, they can test the parsing logic because this is a different format of the base URL. They can test the parsing logic using these dummy entities in the UAT CR after they've implemented the Fetch API 2.0. Once you are confident that your parsing logic is working, your entity is ready to start testing with other entities in the UATCR, we have a list of all the AAs that are ready. available with us. As you can see here, this is the list of all the AAs that are ready to start testing in UAT. So both FIUs and FIPs that are ready can start testing with all of these AAs when they are ready to start ready in UAT. In order to move to production, entities and before moving to production to start testing, the entities should also update their existing entry in the UATCR with the URL, and you can make these changes directly in the UATCR using the AA Commons portal. All of you, I'm assuming all of you have access to it. If you don't, please do let us know. We will enable access for you. Please do drop an email to me or services at Sahamati, and we will enable it for you. And you can test with the AAs that are available, that are ready to start testing. After doing your UAT testing, we are expecting that entities would get certified. That's a recommendation from our side. The list of all the certifiers and their statuses is also mentioned on the GitHub. You can always reach out to the certifiers directly. We have mentioned the email IDs of the spots of the certifiers and when they will be ready as well. Once entities have tested in UAT, they are ready to go live in production, they are ready to start testing. We recommend entities to update their production CR entry after implementing the 2.0 Get API. You can just send an email to services at Sahamati with the updated JSON with the base URLs in the specific format, and you'll be ready to go. You can get more details about this again on the Sahamati GitHub page. Uh, we have all the details mentioned here. So again, how FIUs and FIPs can go live, what are the changes that have happened to their implementation, how AAs can go live, what are the changes that have happened to the CR. We've also tried to answer some commonly asked questions that we have received from entities over the past couple of months about this. We also have a communication flow here, which explains how entities will communicate with each other during the uh, Jan 7th to May 12th period, where if an entity is on 1.2, 1.1.2, and the other another entity is on 2.0, how the communication flows are supposed to work. Please do refer to this. Let us know if you have any questions, any comments. We'll be more than happy to take you through this discussion, this communication protocol as well. That is going to be expected during the coexistence period. So this is the first part of the presentation. Happy to take up any questions, any comments that anyone might have. Yeah, there's a question about V2 APIs, if they should return only the 2.0 endpoint. No, the version 2 APIs that fetch API that we are hosting will return both V1 and V2, because once an entity has gone live on version 2, they're expected to support version 1 as well up until the decommissioning date of V12. Yeah, FIUs will either be on V1 or V2. There is no expectations from the FIUs to be supporting both versions. FIPs and AAs are requested to support both versions as per the specs. As of now, there is no FIP that is live on 2.0. We are working with the FIPs to get a list of FIPs once they are ready in production on 2.0. Not necessarily. All AAs don't have to move to version 2 if a certain FIP is onboarded with multiple AAs, or not all AAs need to move to version 2 immediately, because FIP that has migrated to version 2 will continue to support version 1.1.2 up until the decommissioning date.
Kunal, I suggest that you read out the questions before you answer them, because there are many people who probably are not looking at this Q&A page.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so Satish has a question. I mean, AA will return value of 2.0.0 for V2 APIs. Yeah, when an AA is communicating with an FIU on 2.0.0, you will be receiving message flows as per the 2.0.0 API specs. The list of attendees, there is a question about the list of AAs that are ready on 2.0.0. This list is available on the GitHub. This list is available to you on the GitHub or Sahamati GitHub. The link for that is there in the presentation, which we'll be sharing across after the webinar today. There's a question, if an FIP is not live on 1.0, can they directly go live on 2.0? Yes, they can go live on directly on 2.0. The expectation now is that no FIP would be implementing 1.1.2 because that is just too much work. And logically, all FIPs, now that 1.1.2 has been deprecated, would directly be going, all new FIPs would directly be going live on 2.0. There's a question, the CR API, which is gets updated to get from get to post, means both CR APIs changing to post. Yes. What will happen is we will continue to support the get API for a time being, but we will be publishing a decommissioning date for the get version of the APIs probably sometime next year. We've not finalized a decommissioning date yet. But once that is done, we are expecting that everybody in the ecosystem would move to the post version of the fetch API. There's a question, if there's a community supported by Sahamati where developers can post queries and discuss common difficulties. Yeah, so we have a community of AAs and TSPs. We don't have a live community for FIUs and FIPs right now. We'll take this into consideration. We'll try and figure out how we can get something up and running here. Ruchi, can you please take a note of this? Yeah, we'll be sharing the PPT at the end of the presentation. So there's a question about when the certification should be done. The certification is expected to be done after you have completed your testing on UAT. Certifiers usually run a set of test cases on UAT to verify the implementation and the communication protocols. If you're sending the messages as per the right format, if the response structures are correct from your systems are able to handle the correct all scenarios, the response structures, they will do this verification on UAT. So once you've completed your testing on UAT, you should be ready to go ahead with certification. There's a question about which version of of FIU and FIP to be implemented on 2.0 or 2.1. So 2.1 implementation is only for insurance companies. It's not for other FIPs. If you're an insurance company, you should implement 2.1 directly. For if you are not an insurance company, you don't need to implement 2.1. You can continue to be on 2.0.0. There's a question if certification is mandatory. No, certification is not mandatory. It's a highly recommended thing to ensure smooth operations in the ecosystem. But we do not impose that everybody has to be certified. We do highly recommend that everybody should get certified. There's a question for certification. Should 1.1.2 and 2.0.0 be live in UAT? So with certifiers, they have implemented separate test suites for both 1.1.2 and 2.0.0. If you're an already live entity, you might already be certified on 1.1.2. You don't need to get recertified on that. you can directly get certified on 2.0.0. If you are just going live now, you can directly get certified on 2.0.0. You don't need to be certified on 1.1.2. Also, there's a question, are loan accounts integrated with the AA framework? No, loan accounts are not integrated with the AA framework. As per RBI's decision that AA framework is supposed to be for asset information, liability information is still available with credit bureaus. There's a question about 2.0 test cases for FIUs. Yes, there are a few test cases that are being discussed internally. It's not been finalized yet. As soon as it gets finalized, we will publish the same on GitHub and send out an advisory to everyone in the ecosystem. There's a question, is the commodities data available on AA? You can check the ReBIT specs. If the FI type is available in the ReBIT specs, then the data is available. As of now, I'm not 100% sure. Ruchi, are you aware if commodities is available on AA?
All DMAT data is available on AA. If it comes as the way it is coming for equity data, then it will come for commodities as well.
This webinar, this presentation is mostly about the 2.0.0 implementation. So for any general questions, please feel free to write to us, info@Sahamati. We'll answer all your questions, but let's keep this webinar focused more on the implementation of 2.0.0 specs. Okay, since there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next part of the presentation. So we have been working on a few self-service operations, trying to enable self-service operations of the central registry, and this has been one of our primary goals over the past couple of years to ensure that entities are not dependent on Sahamati for their interaction with the central registry, which is a community asset. So, as you know, so far, Sahamati does two main parts for for the ecosystem with regards to the central registry. First, of course, we verify the eligibility of anyone in the ecosystem to join the network. If they are a regulated entity, as per the AA master directions, if they are allowed or not to join the AA ecosystem. We do that verification at Sahamati. The second part that we do is we create an entry to the CR through our internal technical systems that ensure security and ensure that no entity that is unregulated gets access to the central registry in any scenario. Anybody who is not eligible to be part of central registry does not get access to the central registry. Now, of course, for now, we will have to continue to do the verification of the eligibility ourselves. We are working on eliminating this as well, trying to automate this. But as of now, we will have to continue to do this process manually at Sahamati. But what we have done is we have ensured that entities can create their new entry in the CR without Sahamati playing a role in this. We are creating an API that allows entities to onboard themselves into the central registry. This API also allows entities to update their existing entities in the central registry to update their information in the CR. So right now, what the process is that an entity typically requests an update, and Sahamati teams request an update into the central update in their existing entity in the central registry. Sahamati team validates the request, and then Sahamati team updates the entity in the CR. and the updated entity details are then shared with the entity that has requested. This entire process takes about 24 hours from our end to complete. What we are proposing now is any entity or their TSP can request a new entry to the Sahamati CR. Sahamati team validates if the request is genuine or not, and once the request is validated, Sahamati team issues an onboard token, which can be used in the onboard API, which we will do a demo of right after this to onboard themselves into the CR. Once the entity calls this API, they will be returned the details of the entry that has been created in the CR, the credentials that they can use to receive Sahamati's auth tokens, which are used in headers and the API calls that are being made between any of the ecosystem participants as of now. Also, while updating their entry in the CR, entities can just use the auth token which has been issued to them by the Sahamati token service, which they use to authenticate themselves to other network participants, and they will be able to make an update in their existing entity in the CR using the same API. Uh, I'll invite Krishna now to do a quick demo of this before we move on to the next step.
Yeah, thanks, Kunal. Um, am I audible and clear?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So now we will demo the onboarding process through the onboarding API.
So this is the onboard token that has been issued to a FIU that we have created in the dev environment to do the demo. This token is received by the entity via email in a .txt format. They also receive a second email with the steps of how to use the API and other technical details about the API.
Yeah. So once we paste the access token in the payload, the headers, and we have to have the JSON spec to make an entry, and uh, and the private key has to be passed as a part of request body and response validation as per the ReBIT. Yeah, so now we have added the access token, and the URLs are this. This is the UAT URL, and the JSON request body is same which we use. And as a part of this, there is also an prerequisite script. There is no extra step we need to sign in it. So there is a prerequisite script attached to the Postman collection, which internally encrypts the payload and adds the signature to the request body. Yeah, now we can click on send. Yeah, so on successful creation, we would be getting the status code as 201, and we would get the result as same which we used to get email before. Now it used to be get in the response body, that is client ID and the client secret, and to validate whether this request is actually come from and it's not tampered, right? We also attach the signature as a response, and which we can be validated through the Sahamati's public key, which will be shared when we request access token, and through the email the uh, public key will be shared, and we can when the entities can validate through this. And this is the process of onboarding to the onboarding API. Yeah, over to you, Kunal.
Thank you, Krishna. So Any questions about this API? It's still in the dev environment. Once we deploy it in production, we will let you know through an advisory. But any questions, comments on this so far?
Kunal, there are a few questions in the.
Yeah, I'm just reading through them. As an FIU TSP, when new FIU is getting onboarded, then FIU will get this token. Could you please explain the step? Okay, so what happens is, let's say if a TSP or an FIU themselves are requesting an entry, they will be issued a token. So whoever is requesting the entry, after the validation is done, they will be issued the token. The token has a 24-hour validity. It can only be used for the regulated entity that has requested the entry. So as a TSP, if you have requested entry for an entity, regulated entity A under RBI, you cannot use the same token to onboard another regulated entity B under SEBI. The token is unique to that entity, and once the token is verified, the API first verifies if the token has the right credentials or not, if it has the right access, and then it onboards the entity based on whatever has been provided in the JSON payload by the TSP or the FIU themselves. There's also another question: can the AA TSP try this API in UAT? If yes, can we get the postman collections? Yes, we will be sharing the detailed postman collection for the API very soon. I think the onboarding functionality is something we can try and enable by Monday. Uh, the update functionality would take a couple more days before we are able to implement it in production. There's also a question about, can the API be used by a private company? Also, yes, the API can be used by a private company. It can be used by any unregulated entity also, but only if they're acting as a TSP to a regulated entity. They still have to request Sahamati for the token, and only once the token has been issued by Sahamati, they can use the API. And the token is only going to be issued for onboarding of regulated entities who are eligible to be part of the AA ecosystem. There's a question about if this API needs to send to a Commons Platform API. No, you don't need to. This is a totally separate API from the AA Commons Platform. AA Commons Platform is limited to the UAT Central Registry and UAT token service only. In production, AA Commons does not work. It is supposed to be an open forum for UAT testing. For production, you still have to request an entry into the production CR from 7. The process of requesting the entry is what we're trying to simplify using the onboard API. Okay, there's a question if the CR can support multiple TSP entries for an FIU. No, the CR does not support multiple TSP entries in the same entity for any FIU, FIP, or AA. The expectation is that the entity has a single base URL and a single base URL. It can have multiple IPs. The expectation is entity must have a single base URL for V1 and V2 implementations. If internally entities want to implement multiple TSPs, they can do so, not a problem. But the base URL on which the requests are going to be made should still be a single. You can internally have load balancers and routing mechanism about how you would direct traffic to different TSPs. Okay, I don't think there are any other questions. We'll continue with the presentation there. So we also have a couple of other announcements. We have a set of Meta APIs that provide information about FIP-AA interconnection. There are three APIs that are hosted in this category. These three APIs provide details like connectivity between any two specific FIP and AA, connectivity between an FIP and all the A's that it's connected with, or an AA and all the FIPs it's connected with, and it provides an API to verify if a particular FIP and a particular AA are connected. The postman collection of the documentation for the same is available here. You can try it out, you can implement it in your journeys. The goal for this API is to ensure that we are able to provide we are able to provide support for choice of A's for the FIUs. So any FIUs can, using this API, offer a choice of A's to all of their customers and ensure that the customer doesn't get dropped off due to FIPA interconnections. Also, as you are all aware about the SaaS platform, which monitors the FIP health as being reported by the AAs, we also have a SaaS push API available. This API, you need to register an endpoint in this API. After that, this API will be sending you performance of FIPs every 30 minutes for the past 3 hours on a rolling window basis. This categorizes the FIP performance under for each of the steps involved in the AA flow, such as discovery and linking, consent and notification, and data flow. And based on the performance of the FIP during these three times, it categorizes all of these three categories of the FIP, of all of these three statuses of the FIP as good, bad, or unsure. Good meaning that all the APIs under a particular category are meeting the SLAs that have been agreed. You can find the SLAs on the Sahamati website as well. Bad meaning the FIP is not able to agree to the SLAs, and unsure meaning the data is not available for that FIP during the past 3 hour window. Also, what this does is it takes into account scenarios where you might want to know more if a bad FIP is doing FIP tagged as bad, which of course these are terms that we were using in beta. We would be migrating them to meeting the SLAs, not meeting the SLAs, and unsure. But if an FIP which is not meeting the SLAs as of now you want to see how much is the performance, if it's just a 1 or 2% drop from the SLAs, or is it a significant drop, you can see that because the FIP also provides the median, which is the P50 response time and success percentage over the past 3 years for each of the APIs. So you can make better decisions as an FIU for your customers, whether to show them the option of the FIP on the AA ecosystem or not. So yeah, this was the last part of the presentation. Would love to hear any questions or comments about this. There's a question about how soon can we start UAT. The UAT version can be the UAT of the CR onboard. I'm assuming this means the UAT of the CR onboard APIs, which we can probably start early next week itself. We'll send out an advisory once we are ready to start the UAT. Expected to be very very soon, both UAT and production releases of the API. There's a question if an FIU can subscribe to the SaaS FIP Health API. Yes, you can subscribe to the FIP Health API if you just click on this tab. You'll be redirected to the GitHub page where the details of the API are available. You have to implement the health specs at your end, and once you've done that, you can just verify, implement the signing logic, and whitelist the required IPs and fill in this form. We will deploy the endpoint on a T+1 basis, and you will have the access to the API. You'll start getting hits on the endpoint that you have hosted, you've provided to us. If you need a guide about how to validate JWT public keys, that's also available because that payload would be signed using a JWT public key. So please do refer to this as well. This will require a Sahamati public certificate, which is provided here somewhere. You can refer to that, and you can use it for your activities. Yes, TSPs can access the. There's a question if TSPs can access the SaaS API. Yes, TSPs can access the FIP Health API. It is made available to everyone for now. In the future, we might need to take a decision if it needs to be made available to only a few entities. But as of now, it's just an early access version of the API. So everyone is free to use and test it out and tell us if there are any problems, how we can improve the API, etc. There's a question if a fresh certification is required before the rollout of the new release. Yes, for a new release of the system where you are changing how the AA specs are being implemented, you would require a new certification. You can just reach out to the certifiers; they will explain how the process works and what are scenarios where you can self-certify. Otherwise, there are scenarios where you'll need to run the test suite of the certifiers. There's a question if the Meta API is available for use now. Yes, the Meta API is live. You can start using it. The Postman collection is added in the presentation. We will send out the presentation after the webinar, and you can start testing it out and implement it at your end. I hope I have answered all your questions. If there are any questions that have not been answered, please do drop them here. Do an FIU or FIP have to go for certification of 1.0 and 2.0 before decommissioning in date, or they just need to do the certification on 2.0? An FIU or an FIP that's going live on 2.0 now can directly get certified on 2.0. There is no need to get certified in version 1.1.2 because that has already been deprecated by ReBIT. So there's a question if FIP is required to publish health metrics to SaaS. FIPs do not publish any information to SaaS. SaaS reports the view of the FIP health from the point of view of the AAs, and only then we get the performance of the FIPs from SaaS. It is an aggregate performance across the AAs. As of now, we have 7 of the 14 live AAs, which control about 97% of the traffic in the market, reporting data to SaaS. There's a question if what if multiple TSPs are enrolled with an FIU? In case multiple TSPs are enrolled with an FIU can implement the FIU can implement a wrapper around those TSPs and ensure that how they want to do the routing across different TSPs. We can take this question up in more detail for the specific scenario that you're talking about. You can just write to us and we will help you out for this. There's a question, what would happen when we decommission 1.1.2 and what would base URL look like in Sahamati? So once any entity has been decommissioned on 1.1.2, The structure of the central registry fetch API for now will not change. When if that has to happen, we will let you know. But as of now, we are not anticipating any change in the structure. But since the API itself has been decommissioned, the base URL will not be active anymore, and you'll get connection timeouts and you'll get connection. You'll start getting connection timeouts if you're calling the 1.1.2 API of any other entity, or you'll be getting a 404 not found. There's a question if there's a timeline to get certified for 2.0, same as decommissioning of AA 1.1.2 May 12th, or it can be extended. Yeah, certification, it is recommended that everybody gets certified. The ideal time to get certified is before, as soon as you've finished the UAT testing. There is the time, so ideally the timeline is May 12th, but it is recommended that and it is recommended that all entities before moving live on 2.0.0 get certified in UAT, and the last date for moving live is May 12th, so you'll have to get certified before that itself. If there are any other questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. We'll spend some more time just answering the questions. Please do retype the questions if there's something I've missed. There's a question that TSP, which is already pre-certified on 1.1.2, do they need to get recertified for version 2? Yes, as an intermediate certified TSP, even if you are certified on 1.1.2, since the implementation has changed, you will need to get certified on 2.0.0. There's also a question if FIPs can use the SaaS API for monitoring at their end. In theory, yes, you can use the SaaS API for monitoring at your end, but as an FIP, you have access to a private view in SaaS, which provides AA-wise split about the performance of the FIP. So you can just drop me an email. I'll provide enable access for you as an FIP, and you can start using the private view, which will be a more efficient way of monitoring your own health as an FIP. If there are any questions that I've missed, please do type them in the chat. If there are any other questions that are at the top of your mind, please do feel free to ask. We are here to answer all your questions. We'll just wait for another couple of minutes in case somebody asks a question. We'll end the webinar. There's a question if all FIUs getting onboarded on FIU on a specific pre-certified TSP have to go through certification. Yes, there has to be a test run at the FIU end, but since most of the work has been already done as a pre-certified TSP, just needs to be one quick test run and certifiers can then issue the certificate. Okay, if there are no more questions, we can end the webinar now. Please always do feel free to ask, reach out if you have any other questions. There is another question that has just come up. If an FIU have multiple FIU IDs and CR created to support multiple, can FIU have multiple FIU IDs and the CR to support multiple TSPs? It's a highly unrecommended thing because the central registry is supposed to specify the entity. Technically, yes, the CR can support multiple entity IDs for an FIU. It's extremely unrecommended. It's extremely rare where we would suggest that FIUs do this. But yeah, in theory, it's possible. But we strictly recommend not to do this because it just causes confusion. Then you that means you will also have to issue another public and private certificates. You'll also have to have separate identifiers of how FIU, how AAs are communicating with the specific FIU. So it complicates things for the FIU as well and complicates things in the ecosystem. So it's always better to have a single entity ID managed, which all the TSPs are working with. Okay, since there are no more questions, we can end the webinar now. If anybody wants to ask anything, I am available. I will stick around on the call for another 5-7 minutes if anybody wants to stay back and ask anything. But there's nothing else from my side. Thank you everyone for joining, and we hope everybody's implementation of 2.0 specs is going smoothly. If there are any questions, concerns, comments, please do feel free to reach out. I will just drop my email ID in the chat. Do feel free to reach out if there are any questions that you have, and we'll try and resolve them as quickly as possible. Ruchi, I have access to message the entire group. Can you
Yeah.
just
So
my email ID?
I'm sorry.
Can you just paste my email ID? I don't think I have access to chat with the entire group. It only allows me to message
Oh,
host and
there is
panelists.
an option. Okay, your email ID.
Yeah. Ruchi, I don't think there are any more questions. We can end the webinar and send the deck.
Sure,
to the-
sure. Yes, so thank you very much, everybody, for attending today's session. It was rather quick. Very happy to know that there were, a very useful queries that came out and very specific queries. Nonetheless, whatever questions you may have, Kunal has shared his email ID. We also have shared our info email ID. Please reach out to us. The deck, rather the recording of this session will be available by Monday on our YouTube page and also on our website. If you write to us on info, we will share the links with you. Anything else, like I said, please reach out. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully, if there is a need for a refresher session of this sort that needs to be done, we will do it sometime in the month to come. Okay. Thank you, Kunal. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, everyone.